So first, like to see if we would have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Donovan, could you please call roll?
Mr. Guyer,
Here.
Mr. Eliff,
Here. Yes, we're approving the agenda,
Yes.
correct? Yes.
Ms. McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Why are you calling Mr.
Mr.
Guyer
Guyer.
first?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Second on the agenda, the approval of the minutes from September 26th. It looks like we do have 3 commission members that were in attendance here tonight. So a motion to approve the minutes or make amendments to the minutes of September 26, 2020 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Eliff.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms.
Mr.
Donovan,
Guyer.
could you please call roll?
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Mr. Eliff,
Yes.
Ms. McBride,
Abstain.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Gothard.
Yes.
I think Mr. Guyer made that motion,
Yeah.
but we sound alike.
Okay. Look, we need a mirror up there with the screen and I can see who's talking.
Sorry about
That's okay. First on the agenda is a public hearing for zone change in case 3-2022 Anderson. So if staff could please present.
Thank you. The applicant is Craig Abercrombie from Abercrombie & Associates on behalf of Zika Development Company and Diane Marie Morgan, who is the property owner. The location is at 1349 Nagel Road, and the applicant is requesting a zone change from B single family to DD plan multifamily, and this is for the purpose of constructing 2 duplexes, a total of 4 units. This would be a net density of 9.23 units per acre, and the site is 0.43 net acres. And then there's 0.0619 acres of open space. This is considered Phase 2 of Nagel Village, which has already been approved by the Zoning Commission. Nagel, the Phase 1 that has already been approved was for 6 duplex units and 1 single family, so this was a total of 13 units. Phase 2 will use the same private drive as Phase 1, and this is an entrance off of Nagel Road, which is across the street from Pine Terrace Drive. That zone change was approved by the trustees in February of 2021. Hamilton County recently heard this case, Phase 2, on November the 3rd, 2022, and recommended approval with conditions, 3 conditions. As far as agency reports, the county engineer requires right-of-way dedication on Nagel Road, 40 feet. And then we received just standard review comments from most everyone else, except for Fire, who says no parking on the private drive because of the width of the private drive. So this is the site in question. It's 1349 Nagel, highlighted in red here. There is an existing single-family home and a detached garage on the property. Pine Terrace is this street right here. This is Stonegate Drive, and these are the homes on Stonegate. And Nagel Village is this area outlined here. To the south, we have Sea of Smiles, Dentist. Again, this area here is Zone DD multifamily, the same as the orange up here. This is a parking lot for Sea of Smiles, and then Sea of Smiles is zone planned office. This is the aerial from earlier this year in 2022. As you can see, the grading had just started taking place for Nagel Village. Again, the site in question tonight is really just this parcel here for a zone change only, but it is included as part of Nagel Village, so you can see how it plays into the existing development. So the private drive, again, is a line from Pine Terrace. It comes in. It stubs to the north and stubs to the south. There'll be 2 duplexes proposed. Both, there's a sliver of property here from Nagel Village Phase 1 that would be transferred to these properties to combine in their lots, and they would have access off of the private drive. They are meeting the front yard setback, which was required off of Pine Terrace. And then the setbacks to the rear, I believe are 20 or 25, I can't read it. So we'll go. There is a proposed sidewalk along Nagel. 25, thank you. I've read it back and forth. There is a proposed sidewalk that would connect the existing sidewalk along Nagel to the Sea of Smiles sidewalk. And then there is a small open space area up by the roadway. The elevation drawings are consistent with the existing Nagel Village. And then our photos that we took, we started at the back of Nagel Village 1, back at by the detention basin. So the photos will start here and kind of work your way out to Nagel. But over to the left, which is to the west, is the Stonegate apartment buildings, the two multi-story apartment buildings. Looking straight to the north, these are the Stonegate homes, the single-family homes, and the mound with the trees that have been relocated. This is the parking pad that would be for the the Nagel Village homes. Again, this is looking west at the detention basin and then at the Stonegate apartments. Looking north and again traveling back out to Nagel. Just kind of doing a 360. This is the Sea of Smiles parking area. When they did an expansion here, it's still zoned for single family. It went through the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special zoning certificate to use it for parking. They did have an agreement with the Morgans at the time to keep the natural barrier that was already existing, and that was to screen the commercial parking lot to the single family home. There will need to be a buffering from that parking lot, and we'll get to that further in the staff report. This is a detention basin for Sea of Smiles. This is the entrance of the private drive. A temporary sign and the permanent sign have been installed without permits. This is looking back at Stonegate, the private drive. This is the detached garage and the house on the site in question. Looking to the north on Nagel, the sidewalk along Nagel has already been installed on both sides of the Nagel Village 1. This is looking at that property line that would be the buffer area between the new homes or the duplexes and the parking lot. And the corner of this house is set back approximately 25 feet. So that'll give you an idea. The rear of these homes, the distance between the home and the property line. This again gives you an idea of the distance between the back of the homes and the property line. And this was that existing vegetation line that was there. And then this is looking across the street at the homes off of Pine Terrace. So these were the findings from regional planning, and township staff was in agreement. There was a mistake in the regional planning that identified the comprehensive plan. They had said it was transitional mixed use, and it's actually general mixed use, but the findings are still relevant. This is a transition between the office uses from Beachmont up to about this property, and then it transitions to a little bit higher density residential, the two families, and then into single families. You travel further north on Nagel. But the use of duplexes in this vicinity is a good transition. It's compatible with the general mixed use category of our comprehensive plan. It's also compatible with Nagel Village 1. Staff felt that the zone change would be consistent with these chapters of our comp plan, the people and housing chapters, as well as the land use and development chapter. These are the areas and the zoning resolution that may or may not be compatible. The one is off-street parking. There's no new off-street parking proposed, which is these 4 additional units. It's already incorporated into the existing development. However, there are two curb cuts on Nagel that staff recommends be removed during this construction. The sidewalk, there is a sidewalk on one side of the private drive, and then there will be a sidewalk on Nagel, so that is proposed to continue, and that would meet the township requirements. The last one is lighting. Right now, no lighting was submitted. A lighting plan was not submitted. Landscaping and buffering, we talked about the area, so technically the two families wouldn't be required to buffer to the parking lot. But there was an agreement between Sea of Smiles and that. So we do think an agreeable or appropriate buffer should be installed between the two owners. There is limited space there, so we're not going to be able to do a mound and pine trees like you did on the north side. So something, though, to give some buffering between the residents and the parking lot. And then signage, no new signage is proposed that we're aware of. Again, there is a freestanding sign that was approved with the final development plan. We just didn't issue a zoning certificate for it. And then a temporary sign has been installed without a zoning certificate. So both of those need to be brought into compliance. Design guidelines, we looked at site planning. Again, this is consistent with what's already been approved. Same way with architecture, the elevation drawings are consistent. There was a condition with the original zone change, and it was that brick and stone features be added to all elevations of all units and submitted with the final development plan. So if the zone change is approved, we would recommend that condition carry forward to the final development plan. Lighting, we've already talked about. Trails plan, again, it is consistent with our trails plan. There is that connection on Nagel. And then the Economic Development Committee did submit a letter. I think we put it at your chairs in support. The Tree Committee chose not to submit a letter with the zone change. However, they would like to review the final development plan when that comes through. So recommendations, staff recommends approval of the zone change for the following reasons. For the four following reasons, it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and the chapters that we mentioned. And provides the site opportunity of the applicant to realize a reasonable profit, not necessarily a maximum profit. The conditions that were recommended by regional planning: number one, a lighting plan that meets the minimum standards of the zoning resolution be submitted with the final development plan. That no new signage be permitted in the zone change area, since it is already included with the phase one. Number three, that sidewalks be provided along the entire frontage of Nagel Road and connected to sidewalks within the development in accordance with the Anderson Township Zoning Resolution. And then these three were recommended by township staff, that with the final development plan review for phase two, a major modification application also be submitted for the Nagel Village, and that was case 3/2020. So that would be reviewed at the same time. It would be a major modification because this does impact the density and just the overall development. So we recommend that that be submitted back to the Zoning Commission for review. Number two, that the two curb cuts on Nagel Road for the existing single-family residences be removed, or residents be removed, but there are two for that residence. And then number three, that brick and stone features be added to all elevations, and this was consistent with the last condition the Zoning Commission put on that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Drury. Mr. Guyer, any questions of staff? Mr. Ellis? Ms. McBride? No. Man. Mr. Lewis? No. We'll make it a clean sweep.
Wow,
Thank you very
okay.
much. So now if the applicant would like to present their case, please state your name, address, and affiliation to the case.
Good afternoon, evening. I'm Craig Abercrombie with Abercrombie Associates. We're the civil engineer. Made the application on behalf of Joe Ferrugia to my right, and I'm at 8111 Cheviot Road. Really, I don't really have much to add, except the reason we didn't turn a lighting plan in is similar to phase one. It's just gonna be coach lights on the building, no street lights. And then on the landscape buffer, we didn't show a landscape buffer to buffer us from the parking lot. That was kind of based on talking to staff. The dentist really hasn't put their buffer in from their variance from a few years ago. So I think Joe was just going to kind of get with them and kind of work a buffer out that would make both happy. So really probably be more buffer in the parking lot from the new residents. So.
Mr. Lewis, any questions of the applicant?
What was the issue with the signage you have signs up that were not approved or have not been approved?
I'll defer to Joe there.
You guys same thing, come up, state your name and your
Address, yes.
Hi, my name's Joe Ferrugia, address 7861 East Kemper Road. So we did put up the permanent and the builder sign, the temporary sign. The permanent one I thought was on our original, it is on our original plan. I just figured it was part of our approval, but I was corrected. So we will apply for the permanent sign and the temporary sign permits. So
Okay.
that's in the works.
Thank you.
Any more? Ms. McBride, any questions of the applicant? Mr. Ellis? No questions. Mr. Guyer? Okay. I've got a question concerning the buffer, and the mature trees that are in the staff report. So I don't know which of you two would like to address those, but are the two sort of mature trees that are on site going to be retained with no damage to the root structures, et cetera?
The two large, are you talking about the ones on part of phase one of the first approved? Oh, these
Phase
two?
two,
Yeah, we hope we can save them. I know we have to trim them up because they're gonna be, you can see they're kind of going over the top of the building. But we will try to save those. And then we were gonna get with the dentist, once we got further along, and beef up the landscaping, not only on the south line, but also where the detention, where Paul showed the detention for the dentist office. We need to buffer that too. And I think he was required to do that all anyway, so we're just gonna add to it. We're gonna work with him.
So will there be a final landscaping with the final development plan
Yes,
submitted?
yes, there will
With
be.
lighting plan? even
No,
if it's
well,
just
the
coach
lighting
lights?
plan, we're just using the coach lights. We're not gonna have lights per se through the development. It'll just be coach light on each unit. So,
We didn't do a lighting plan for the first phase.
right,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
So, anyone opposed to the application like to speak? All right, just had to get that in there. When the room's this big, you have to do something, right? So, discussion amongst the commission. We'll start with you, Mr. Lewis.
No, it's pretty straightforward. My only question, or not question, but concern is the availability of additional parking for visitors outside of residence. It seems extremely limited, but it is, as it's drawn up, I mean, they'll have to figure it out. 'Cause there are other restrictions, but the fire department had put it in, so.
Ms. McBride?
No, I don't have any discussion points.
Okay. Mr. Ellis?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments on it. I think it fits in quite nicely there. It makes a lot of sense going next to that parking lot. I thought in the other phase, we had some off-street parking and they were requested to remove that. I could maybe not be remembering that correctly, but I remember thinking when they removed that before that they're going to be short, but it's been removed. So am I right about
So
that or not?
you're right. There
Oh,
were some proposed right here, and it was, during the public meetings, it was suggested that be moved back further. So there are 3 spaces here, and then there are 5
I got
spaces
you.
here, but that's it.
So we just moved, we had to move it, so it'll probably work okay. Yeah, I think it's a little short on parking, but I don't think that's a deal killer. And then on the, I didn't really have a thought on the trees, except that just looking at those trees, the tree committee didn't weigh in on those, but they don't look particularly like the kind of trees I would want to have near my new duplex, because they're all over the place. They're not like a nice solid tree. So I'm okay not having a condition that they be preserved. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Mr. Guyer?
I don't have any discussion points.
Okay. With no other discussion
Can I
points,
ask one
yes.
question? Do we know what kind of trees those are?
I thought you would ask that, and I don't. So,
I'm so predictable.
I know. So there is one that could possibly, and hopefully the applicant will consider, this tree back here seems to be on a corner and on the property line, and it seems to be the healthiest out of all of them. These are old. This tree here, it looks bigger than it actually is, I think just because of the angle of the shot. This is a big old tree, but I don't know the health of it, and we didn't have them evaluate it.
It's a recent picture?
This was November the 9th. This tree back here, though, could potentially, it appears to be on the property line and out of the way of everything. This is just a maple back here. This oak over here was on the doctor's office's property, so it shouldn't be disturbed. So there will be this tree that will stay, and this one, hopefully the applicant can consider saving that one. This is a big oak tree, I don't know the health of it.
Hey, I'm sorry, one more follow-up for Paul. Was the dentist's office required to put in some kind of buffering as part of their variance, and they just never got around to it, or was it just to preserve that kind of,
It was
those
an-
bushes
it was
that are
kind
there?
of an unwritten agreement between the dentist and the Morgans. I think this hedgerow belonged to the Morgans, and they wanted to just keep it. So the dentist never put anything else in because there was already a buffering through there.
I got you.
Was there any input or comment from the dentist on this case?
No, we didn't receive anything. So he does have perimeter landscaping, but it's not really enough to buffer the cars. Our requirement's a 4-foot tall solid screen. This satisfied it, and again, it was right on the property line. In the back, yes, I agree with Joe and Craig. There is a gap right here. There is a detention basin, but there is a gap. They did have some evergreen screening over here.
Any other questions? All right, would someone like to entertain making a motion?
Am I still allowed to do that, since I've been absent? I would make a motion on zone change case 3-2022 Anderson for 1349 Nagel Road. And that would be a motion to recommend approval of the request based on the recommendations from both Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission and the findings of our township staff, along with the recommendations from our staff, and adding one additional condition that a landscape buffer be between the site with the parking lot to the north be submitted to provide adequate buffer between the office and residential uses, and that part of that landscape plan that would be submitted with the final development plan incorporate any findings that an arborist would go out and look at those 3 trees and determine if they should or could be saved, and what would necessary protection would be required to save them if that's warranted.
Thank you, Ms. McBride. Do I have a second for the motion?
Second.
Mr. Lewis, thank you. Ms. Donovan, could you please call roll?
Mr. Guyer?
Yes.
Mr. Eliff?
Yes.
Ms. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Gothard?
Yes. Thank you very much. With that, item number 4 on the agenda is discussion topics.
Yes, this is just a discussion item. It's not a public hearing, and we wanted to get your feedback. As you know, Tri-Health presented a signage package to you at the September 26th Zoning Commission hearing, and what was approved by the Zoning Commission was that the Beachmont facade have a wall sign limited to 71 square feet, and then the sign on the 5 Mile facade be 40 square feet, not to include the Hospice Anderson sign. So a new proposal was received from Tri-Health that had signage on the south facade as well as on the east facade. 40 square feet on both of those. Well, actually on all 3 sides except for the Beachmont side, and then they were still proposing 71 square feet on the Beachmont, 64 square feet, I'm sorry. Let me back up. I got the numbers confused. So our zoning resolution allows 40 square feet on all sides of the facade in an office building. For this particular property, the zoning commission approved 71 square feet on Beachmont and 40 square feet on 5 Mile. Now they are asking for 36 square feet on their east, south, and west facade and 64 square feet on the north facade. We did not feel comfortable issuing a zoning certificate, even though the other sides could have up to 40. But in the past, with your decisions on allowing extra wall signage on one facade, you generally take into account the total sign package. And so we wanted to see if you were comfortable with us issuing a zoning certificate for this, or if you wanted to bring it back as a public hearing at the December meeting. The resolution wasn't specific saying they couldn't have signage on the other facades. It just said what was approved. And then in the minutes, it really wasn't discussed. The other facades weren't discussed because it wasn't part of their plan. We really just didn't even discuss it.
Right.
So we just didn't feel comfortable approving this without bringing it back to you, at least for some discussion. And if you feel like you want to see the entire package at a public hearing, then we will do that in December.
As somebody who wasn't here for the initial discussion, so what we're seeing tonight is what they're proposing, not what was approved on the 26th.
That's correct, what they
okay?
would be proposing.
So, I mean, just throwing it out there, I don't have a problem with what they're proposing now. I mean, it's a destination use. We've got people that are driving, looking for their doctor's office or their, the hospice or whatever it is. And it is somewhat, visibility is somewhat limited, given, if you're going north on 5 Mile or even east on Beachmont by other uses, and then we've got the Whirligig intersection thing going on there. So that's a technical,
Continuous flow.
it's a technical
Continuous
term,
flow,
don't use that, guys. But at any rate, as somebody who didn't hear it previously, I don't have a problem with what they're proposing.
Mr. Lewis.
Well, I was here, and my only thoughts were, how did they come to this decision? We spent a good amount of time talking about the signage, showing examples across the street, other places in Anderson. It seems like they, for lack of a better term, blindsided us a little bit by adding 2 additional signs. Not that I'm opposed to it, we had a nice flow going, and now all of a sudden, boom, they come in with this. So, but I agree, it's a high visibility area.
Mr. Olive.
Yes, I would echo that a little bit. And also, yeah, it's like at the last hearing, nobody drove by the building because when I drove by it tonight, I'm like, obviously you want exposure going north on 5 Mile and maybe even going east on Beachmont. So it makes some sense. I guess the tricky thing is we agreed to a larger sign on the north side of it. Over the 40 they'd be allowed otherwise, but I looking at their drawings, which was helpful, those additional signs do not look out of scale to me for the size of the building, and honestly a little freshening up of that building I think is a good thing. I agree with what Ms. McBride said it's possible, yeah, that this is one of those true cases where somebody actually uses the sign because they're looking for that building. So I guess I'd be okay with it. I was kind of in favor of, I think I was the only one in favor of a little bit more signage last time, so the presentation on their part's a little bit awkward, but I'm not sure. I guess I would be supportive of it, though, because it is somewhat necessary to have some exposure on that building. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Guyer, excuse me.
So they're only showing about half of each elevation. Is there other signage on
The only other sign that we're aware of is the hospice sign, which is on the little wing wall right at the intersection of Beachmont and 5 Mile.
Which is hard to see because of the,
Which is hard to see, and they said that they could take that off, remove that off, or remove that completely.
There is a sign on the west side of the building, because I saw it tonight coming here. Small
that-
cabinet sign.
That health, or
Yeah.
I said, and, yes,
Yeah.
that would be removed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of character or, especially with a lot of houses, it's going to be on each elevation. I don't think this is out of character.
If I could just jump in one more thing on it is, I would be in favor of if we approve this, to have a condition to remove the hospice sign. I just think with these additional signs, Tri-Health is a well-known and great health provider in this community, and I think that would be nice to highlight that on the building, and maybe remove the hospice, even though that's obviously an important service.
they're
You
a
don't-
tenant, right?
I don't think you do hospice is not a drive-by type thing, obviously, Okay.
No way in last. I mean, I think, we approved one sort of concept and then they read the zoning code and sort of, okay, well, let's try this. I think it'd be good, since we did make the previous ruling, that they come back and present this to us. Or go straight zoning and have 40 square feet maximum per elevation. Because even the 64 is a variance to straight up zoning. Yes, we approved something that allowed more, but now they're doing something different than what they proposed last month or 2 months ago. So that's my personal take. Don't know if there was a consensus on all that.
Do we have a consensus?
For consistency, I would support that.
No, I didn't hear it the first time, sorry.
Well, I'd also add to that, Mr. Gothard was the one that made the motion, and which received the support of the board, so I would be somewhat deferential to his thoughts on that. I would be fine with approving the 40 on all sides. Then maybe if they want to come back and present again for additional, and they can be persuasive, maybe you could go to them with that, Paul.
Because
but-
my understanding was 40
Maybe they
per
don't
elevation
need, do
is
they even need
unrealistic.
our approval to go 40 on all sides?
As of right, they can do 40, but if they want to go more, yes, they need approval. But their argument to us was, well, we already received approval for 70 on Beachmont. Now we just want to do what we can up, since we're allowed to do 40 on the others. So I say it sounds like we need to bring them back in for a public hearing. Is that, okay, we'll bring them back in December. That way they can show all elevations, they can show if they're removing it, a hospice sign, or they're keeping it.
And it would be interesting if they could focus a little bit on what is the need for that larger sign. There's got to be some reasoning to it, I suppose.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
might be helpful.
all right, that sounds good. We'll bring them back.
Thank you all. So, Mr. Drury, Ms. Donovan, any other things besides the Tri-Health sign in December that you know?
I don't. No, I don't think we have anything, and it is a week earlier because of Christmas, so it'd be December the 19th.
So with that, motion to adjourn? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Great, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Perfect, thank you very much.